meeting is being recorded. Lois, do you have your flag? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Okay, it's 7:02, and we will call the meeting to order. Our mission is to address the needs and concerns of our disabled residents and provide their full participation in the activities and services of Wakefield. Bill, thank you for joining. First item, we would like to approve the meeting minutes from April 8th. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Lois. Dan and Judy, will you second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so I sent you all.
Marie, I sent out the March minutes as well.
Right, the March.
Those have been approved.
Okay, and do you recall the date of those?
I think March 4th.
March 4, okay.
I could be lying, but I think that's the date.
Okay, could we have a motion to approve those? March 4th.
I approve.
Thank
I
you.
make a motion.
Someone to second?
Second.
Thanks, Dan. Okay. So starting with parking on voting days, we got an email from a resident who expressed concern about not enough handicap parking spots on voting day at the Galvin close to the door. So I know this has come up in the past, and we addressed it by putting cones and extra spaces, which I know we did.
Yeah.
Because I saw the cones, so I'm not sure what happened there. If it was, let me just.
I think the resident wants to basically have a spot that's like right in front of the door, essentially. This has kind of been an ongoing thing when I talked to Betsy about it. So, I mean, that's not something, it's a fire lane, so that's not something we necessarily can make happen, obviously. So, I mean, we do have the spaces that are right there. So,
One of the spots is, I think the line of spots that were designated for, senior parking,
Yep.
which is lovely to have that.
Right.
The closest spot is a designated accessible parking spot. It's a van accessible parking spot. Of those spots, the one closest to the door is a spot. So it's just a matter of if somebody's using it.
Right. And I mean, we add extra ones too, so it's in the designated senior spots are close too. I mean, I can make sure that they add another one or two, I guess, in those locations, but we can't put it obviously in the fire lane, so that's not something we're going to be able to make happen.
Okay.
And Marie, I had also suggested, this person also said it was difficult to go all the way into the building to the gym. That having the cafeteria as the voting place was easier to get to. Could we have a wheelchair provided that's available by the door, that if somebody wanted to use the wheelchair to get from the door to the gym, they could do that?
I mean, I can look into that, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure who would be manning it. That's the thing for the wheelchair.
I think if a person would need to be coming with someone, would need to have the capacity to use the hand-turned wheelchair, or have a person with them who could push the wheelchair. But I'm thinking the Disability Commission could use some of our funds to provide it and have it, at town hall, and then brought over when all the rest of wherever, I don't even know where the rest of the stuff is kept, but wherever the rest of the stuff is kept.
So when we had the grant project last year, I believe a transport wheelchair was provided to town hall from that funding. I think that there might be one available.
Really?
You think I would know about it, but you know, I'm not. an
It,
expert,
it
you
may
know.
have gone to the senior center,
That
but
might be the
I
same.
know that it was discussed in the funding for that.
Who would have bought it, Judy? Who would have physically made
It
the
was
purchase?
it was the grant that we were involved in with the Board of Health through Melrose when they were with
Yeah.
the 4 towns, and then that was one of the requests. The transport wheelchairs that are very lightweight and easy to move around. So I believe that one was provided to, I thought it was Town Hall, but it may have been the senior center.
The transport ones, they actually have 4 wheels on them, and so somebody would have to probably push the person, as opposed to the person being able to use the hand wheels.
For small wheels, you're saying, Lorna?
Right, right.
That
Yes,
doesn't-
that's
okay.
correct. It's a very lightweight, easy to store, easy to move around. That was the intent.
Well,
Can
if it's already been purchased, then we definitely should track that down and use
not-
that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's at the
Board of
senior
Health.
center and it's being used, I mean, we have budget too, so we can definitely get another one. I don't see that as an issue either, so, you know.
Should we get another transport wheelchair, or would we get a wheelchair that the person could self-propel if they had the capacity to do that?
So one of the advantages to the transport wheelchairs, as I say, they're very lightweight. So it's very easy to bring them to a site wherever you need them to be. Yes, you do need somebody to help you generally. But they're very easy to move around. They're very, you can put them in a vehicle and bring them wherever it needed to be.
Can I ask if that doorway going in, and I know it's a double door, is that handicap accessible and automatic door?
I'd imagine it
Yes.
would have to be, they definitely have it, right, folks? I mean.
It is.
Specific, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
I've done
Yes,
this.
at the Galvin.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
handicap accessible, yes.
So-
there
so
are,
the-
there are 2 push plates, one on the outside, and then when you get in between the vestibule, there's another push plate. They were functioning perfectly. Excuse me, I just have to move a cat.
Lois and I voted at the same time, and I know I had heard that they were gonna use that side door by the basketball court. So we walked all the way there. That
We got
wasn't open.
complaints on that. I believe might even be the same person that complained about trying to get to that because the door's so far away.
Yeah.
So, you know, unfortunately, we can't move it to the cafeteria. We talked to Betsy about that, and basically size-wise, that's a problem, and then also outlet requirements. So with how she has to set it up for the flow, that didn't really work, is what I was told, so. There's not as many outlets in the cafeteria for some reason.
Yeah, we have 84 booths.
Yeah.
In that room.
Yeah, it's a lot.
A lot of booths in that room.
A lot of booths, yeah.
Does anybody have any more comment or discussion on the voting days issue? Otherwise, we can move right to Janice's update on the parking survey.
Do we want to get back to the resident and comment, make sure that she's aware that one of the parking spots that is designated and lined and only for people that have a placard is right next to the ramp, the sidewalk?
I
The
can do-
the closest spot is right, you have to go across the driveway, that you have to go the road or whatever, you have to cross the road.
Yeah.
But you're at the sidewalk that enters the building. There's still, it's not 3 feet to get into the building. It's still
Yeah.
a bit. But, and just make sure that, I think that's the closest spot to the building, to
Okay.
that entrance
They're
of the
required to
building.
be that way, so that's where you have to put them.
Bill, do you want to reach out? Do you want me to reach out?
Either way, we can tag team if you want, however you want to do it, Marie, your call.
Okay,
I have no
You-
problem either way.
you go for it.
Thanks, I'm on it. All right.
Right, so Marie, do you want me to do the?
Yeah, so tell me what
review?
you want me to do on my
Okay.
end.
All right, so I'm really bad at sharing things, so Marie said she would share some things. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, there was a training that was offered by the Disability Law Center on assessing voting places. Luckily in Wakefield, we have one polling place, and that is almost completely accessible because the building is new. So that was great, and I was able to assess it that morning. So I let Bill know what was going on, and I sent the tool that was used, pretty simple tool that was used, that's on the Disability Law Center website. And the training is also available to anybody who wants to review it on the Disability Law Center website. I think when I'm done, maybe Marie can just show that slide, just so you know. So that's the Massachusetts Disability Law Center. There's a similar organization in every state, so that's our organization. That's what it's called in Massachusetts. And it was a useful training. It was useful to see it wasn't terribly complicated. So when I assessed the Galvin polling area that morning, I found, and I've sent this all to Bill and to Betsy and to the Disability Law Center, there were a couple of curb cuts that were more than half of an inch, just because they are. The rest of them were completely in alignment. There was one parking space that was a few inches too narrow to meet the requirements. I don't think either of those things would be preventing anyone from accessing the polling place, but I went by the book, and there is a space that is a few inches too narrow. When I entered the building, was randomly some desk sitting in the hallway, and if a person uses has very low vision and uses a cane, the person needs to be able to detect the object either needs to be much higher or lower. The desk needed to be moved out of the hallway to be fully accessible. So that would be an easy fix. The survey recommends that there is a place for people to sit down inside or outside the polling place if they're waiting in line for a long time. We had no line, so there was no issue with a line. I don't know if I've ever seen a line outside the door of the gym when I've gone to vote. Sometimes you have to wait at your precinct, maybe 2 or 3 people deep, to get to that. But in any case, having chairs would be helpful. The bleachers were pulled out so that you could go over and sit at the bleachers, and that was directly opposite where all of the check-in tables are for the precincts. But the bleachers are too low for a lot of people to sit on the bleachers at the bottom. So having a few chairs that are available for people to sit in, also a simple thing to correct, would be helpful. The sample ballot was posted on the door entering the gym, and the sample ballot needed to be moved down a little bit, probably about 4 to 5 inches, depending on which door and which ballot, in order to be at the correct height. So that's also something that's easily fixed. There is, and I've never noticed this before, but there is a voting machine that is an accessible voting machine. It's called an automark machine, and we have one automark machine. Again, having just one polling place makes things a little bit easier. I assume, had automark machines at every other location when we used to have more than one location. So the automark machine can be operated in many different ways by people with a variety of different disabilities. It can legally be used by anyone who is a voter in Wakefield who wants to use that machine. So if you wanted to test it out the next time you were over there, which I think that I probably would do, I think I'll give that a try the next time and use the automark machine. You are legally allowed to do that. The AutoMark machine was ready and waiting for anybody to use. It needs to be set up slightly differently. It needs to have a privacy shield around it, which possibly exists. There was a great big bag that I think the machine was transported in. Possibly those shields were in that bag, but they were not in use. The way the table was set up that has the AutoMark machine on it, the table was touching the wall on one side. There was plenty of room behind the table for turnaround space. If somebody was using a wheelchair, they could easily get to it. However, because of the way it was oriented, somebody could come up behind the individual who was voting and they could see what they were doing, because it's a pretty sizable screen. That table needs to be turned and oriented so that the screen actually faces the wall that is behind the person. I think there's plenty of room to do that and still maintain the 60 inches that's needed between the wall and where the table starts. The table was the right height. And again, the privacy shield still should be in use. What I didn't see was any other, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see any other marking shelf, if you want to use that term. So of all the voting booths that were there, and I counted 84 of them, none of them were at a low height. Has anybody ever seen anyone at a low height?
I have, yeah, they do it in Middleton here. They definitely have one.
Yeah, they did it, and I've seen it in other places, but sorry. I have a very sociable cat.
Yeah.
I did not see a voting booth that was low, and it needs to be no more than 32 inches high. So if we have one, it wasn't set up. If we don't have one, we need to get one, because there are people who don't want to use the AutoMark machine that just need an accessible space for voting, and they don't need the rest of the accommodations offered by the voting machine.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The other piece that was really clear in the training was that people should be offered the opportunity to vote privately and under their own power whenever possible. And a person choosing to vote under their own power should be offered that opportunity, so that they shouldn't have to accept somebody coming to help them. So that is interesting thing. So Marie, that the page from Disability Law Center, can we share that? Because it also has a place that if you have a complaint about your polling place, a person can submit that to the Disability Law Center as well. Or if there was a situation that occurred, if somebody asked to use the AutoMark machine and was told, sorry, not available, or gee, it's broken, or whatever. If they asked for accommodation and didn't get the accommodation, they could report that to the Massachusetts Disability Law Center.
I think the what do they call it? The warden of the voting area knows how to operate that, but I don't think the other people do usually.
And that was a question that Betsy was pretty busy that day when I went. So I reported to her when I arrived. I'd already sent her the information. I gave her a copy of the survey and told her I would be filling out the survey. She thought she had to fill it out, but I said, no, but I said, I'll be filling it out. I asked her where the AutoMark machine was, and but I didn't have the opportunity to ask, are people trained to use it? And that is one of the questions on the survey. Is the staff trained to use the AutoMark machine? I'm hoping Betsy is, but
she's all over this stuff, so I'd be surprised if she's not, but I can follow
yeah,
up.
I think that she is. I think that there should be more than one person who is trained, so that if she's busy, and she's pretty busy on voting day, they look like they were a little understaffed this time. Usually they look like they were overstaffed, and maybe they needed some more folks to volunteer.
So Janice, what page is it you want me to share?
Whatever you would like to share, just something that will show.
Show
it will
the site.
be both the Disability Law Center website, and there's a bunch of different documents that you can get through Disability Law Center, all having to do with voting rights. They have many other projects that they're doing. So this is, if you go to their website, you'll see a bunch of other things that Disability Law Center does. But this is the voting rights for people with disabilities. This is a particular page on their website.
I can send this this web address to everybody after the meeting.
That'd be great. That would be great. It's interesting to check out, and there are just a lot of the whole website is pretty interesting. And you'll see further down below that is where those are all the resources that are available. Remote voting, your right to be to vote remotely, etc. And way down below is the training, so you can just click on and see the training. So I just wanted folks to see that, and we'll send the website out. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts?
Just one thing about the voting booths.
Mm-hmm.
You said there was 84. So they were set up in like an X shape that you had 4 people, I believe, on one could vote at the same time. It was like a table, but they had little lights in them. And I noticed that lights were on. And I had trouble myself trying to see the ballot, let alone Lois's low vision. But and I realized you'd have to plug in all those sockets there with the I think they're LED lights, but
Yeah.
I didn't see any where we were.
I noticed
that we're
it
on.
also.
So you're saying, Dan, you're saying that the lighting in the booth was not sufficient.
Maybe about 2 feet up.
It was
It's
not.
like a little long indicator light that I believe is LED or something.
And you're saying you weren't able to turn it on, probably because it wasn't plugged in. Is that what you're saying?
How would you know how to turn it on?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I
Especially if you're
noticed
low
that.
vision, you know?
Right.
And I realized you'd have to plug in every single one of those, but
You know, I didn't even ask, and I should ask the Law Center, are there large print ballots? Because I know it has to fit into that machine. If you're actually using, the paper ballot, it would have to be able to go through the machine that counts it.
and if you had something, a lot of questions, it would be difficult to.
Right. So yeah, so it would be, you'd have like a 20-page ballot if they made it 18, everything 18 font. Interesting. So have you ever?
But with that screen that you were talking about, couldn't a person go over and utilize that, look at the questions to familiarize
You
themselves?
can, and you can, it is a much larger print on that screen. You can use headphones. You can talk, you can vocalize what your voting is. You can say yes or no, and it will show up. You can double check your ballot. If you go to that training video, it shows how the automatic machine works and what the different options are for people with low vision, for people with mobility disability, for folks that have cognitive disability, and it's better, they might find it better to have the question read to them.
So that's another reason, as you say, to have multiple people trained on it, because it seems like that is something that could benefit a lot of folks.
I think it definitely could.
Betsy about it.
And
I mean,
people
it might even be me. Might need to be
People-
me.
sorry, though?
It might have to be me or somebody else that is working with me to be there or something. We'll figure it.
I'm also thinking that if we get trained,
The poll workers work different shifts of like 3 hours, 4 hours, or whatever.
yeah, that's the
So
thing. So
they're rotating around.
it might be something that if we get some additional volunteers that are just volunteering for that machine, and maybe we could become some of those volunteers, because it's not like voting takes place over 6 days. It's one day,
Mhm.
you know, from 7 until 8 PM, I think. And if we, you know, could take some shifts, we could potentially do that. So,
So I think just keep in mind that we'd have to talk to Betsy about that, because I'm assuming there's some
correct.
swearing in and all that type of stuff that goes into this, so.
Yeah. I'll
So
email
this
them.
machine could be used by somebody who is totally blind, and instead of having Braille printed, then they could have it read to, unless of course they're deaf-blind, and then we run into a,
You have a clicker. And you are, you know, there's a left, I think a left button and a right button on the clicker. You have headphones. If the person is able to hear, they can use headphones and they can respond using the clicker, and it will review what you've done. So you'll be able to go back and go through it again and say whatever it is that, you know, you're voting for, select board. You voted for blank and blank. I'm not really sure exactly what it says to you, but it does review. So yes, somebody who has no vision is able to vote. You know, I think that it probably, and then there are a bunch of other situations. It will do many different things to accommodate a bunch of different options. But as I said, anyone can ask to use it. So if you, and it even said people who get anxious that they are gonna, you know, fill in the wrong little dot on the ballot, and they can use that machine because it will confirm what you've done before you submit your vote.
We probably should advertise that it's there. People
Yeah,
probably
that's a
have
good idea.
no
That's a
idea.
good idea. Yeah, we could do that on our website. That would make sense.
Yeah, I'd never noticed it before because it was
Yeah, kind of tucked
way
away.
over to the left side when, you know, when you walk in the gym doors, it was way over to the left in, you know, pretty good size open space. So, but we do need to get a lower table as well, voting table. We need to make sure that happens.
I think years ago, they had a machine that Lois used to use, the Optilex. And I think they had one of those for every 2 precincts when we had 4 precincts in town. But they've had it for a while, but this sounds like it's an updated version of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have one, actually.
So overall, Janice, we did well.
I think it's also fortunate that we're all at Galvin now, which is you know, a relatively, you know, for us, a brand new building. I spent the day in the Herd School today with for the book fair, and that it made me really appreciate the middle school. And so you don't, you know, you're not worrying about thresholds and all of that. It was built as an accessible building. So having it all there, you know, you need one machine, you've got Betsy there, so she's not running around to different polling places. So it's advantageous. And I think Wakefield did very, very well. I would imagine there are lots of places that were problematic, and we were not one of them.
That's
A
good.
few little tweaks. And the other thing that was, and I forgot to mention this, the signs for the accessible parking are high. They're too high to meet. And I've actually looked at other signs since then, and I'm like, those are too high, and those are too high in different places. So they are the
Pay for
top,
parking space? For the parking
the
space?
top of the, you know, the tall
Black-
sign that's next to the parking spaces.
Mhm.
Whatever the maximum height for the top of the sign is, it was above the maximum height for the top of the sign. But you know, I'm wondering if they changed that or something, because I've seen a lot of really tall signs since then. Now I'm looking at the
To be
signs.
honest with you, I've never heard that there was a max, and I've been doing this for a while, so that's interesting.
I think that's the main lot you're talking about,
I'm sorry?
in the main parking lot. In other words,
Yes. Right next to the field.
okay,
Yeah, so they're the parking spots that are up front. That so the sidewalk that goes down beside the school, and then the driveway that comes in, and then there are, I think, 5 parking spots that are
Yeah.
right up against there. The signs there's a maximum height, and I don't remember what it is. But I measured it a couple of times going, I think this is too tall. So yes. But I think I sent that all in the report, the email that I sent, I went through these little bits and pieces. And sent that, and I CC'd you on that.
Yep.
And Betsy. So that would have been done somewhere after 2/14, within a couple of days of that time period in February.
The only thing that I heard was, again, from people saying signage to get into the building and where the voting area was. They thought that you should have a little more signage out in front as they got out of their car.
Yeah, maybe a big sandwich board that says vote here with the big arrow.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hurt. As long as it's not blocking the curb cut, it wouldn't hurt.
So the next item is sort of a good segue from the voting survey is, well, it talks about another resident sent us an email regarding accessible accommodations for town meeting and other public meetings. The concern was where in the publications for town meeting did it say that, you know, if you needed an accommodation that you were to communicate with Bill. Now, looking at our meeting notice for tonight's meeting, it's embedded there under
Yeah.
the Zoom information.
It's embedded in every agenda that goes out. I think it got missed within the warrant. So I've already had conversations with that because I got a few of the requests. But
Okay.
basically, anything that came in as a question was directed towards me. There was some questions about a map and how that can be accessible, even though there were, you know, mechanisms to be able to listen to the map that explains it. So there were some things that we have for that through our communications folks. So I don't think anything really came of it, but they'll make sure it's on there going forward, obviously. And anything that happens, I mean, if we get any requests, obviously I accommodate them. So we've been doing the, you know, obviously the, you know, our with the teletype stuff there, the cart services. So that's been happening. And I'm hearing good feedback on that from a bunch of folks, which is good.
Right, and it was really visible at town meetings, so,
Yeah, and you can get it on your phone too. So when you're there, there's a little blip
Oh.
when you're signing in. There's a QR code, so you don't even have to look all the way over there. You can look right on your phone and do it.
right, that's for the actual, the booklet, right? The meeting book, that was what the QR code was for, right?
No, you can get the cart services rather than trying to see that screen
Okay,
too far away from you. You can get it actually on your handheld while you're there, which is
okay.
Bill, I just want to make sure I got this correct. Are you saying that the information on accessibility was missing from the town meeting announcement?
the warrant. Yeah, we call it the warrant. So the
The
warrant.
warrant, so it's missing from the warrant? Okay.
Yeah, so that's already been addressed because you know, I'm not really involved with the warrant development, but you know, I've already had them added to all the agendas. I didn't specifically say warrant, so I think it just was, you know, nobody thought of it. So we're wrapping that up, so that'll be covered for the next one
Thank you.
and going forward.
Okay, before I move on to anything that's unrelated, does anyone have any other questions for Janice? Okay, let's get rid of that. So we had another resident write in who commented that he was downtown and he has often been seeing where people are parking on the sidewalks and blocking them.
I don't know if it's really the downtown. I think it's more like Salem Street was an example where you see that happen a good amount.
Okay,
Yeah, so I mean, there was a response from Lieutenant Anderson, I think, Marie, that went to you, if memory serves, right? That wasn't back to the resident?
Yes, and he said our parking enforcement is out daily. He said many time, elderly operators forget to put up their placard. This would be in regard to specifically handicap parking spots. I questioned him as, saying that from what we've been told in the documentation provided to us, there's been one receipt for an handicap parking violation in over the past, whatever it was, 3 or 5 years. And he does not feel those stats are accurate. So he said what would happen in an instance like this, if somebody forgot to put their placard up, he said that this is usually resolved when parking enforcement has a conversation with the individuals and confirms that they do have one and they see it. He said there are some roadways where the town has had past practice for years of allowing vehicles to pull somewhat on the sidewalk as to not narrow the roadway. He said our response is always to ticket or warn anyone who parks obstructing a sidewalk and prevent a wheelchair, stroller, etc. from being able to adequately use the sidewalk. He said some streets in town, it is a delicate balance of roadway safety and sidewalk safety. But his response is to encourage anyone to call them at any time if you observe a violation where a handicap space is being taken without a placard or a sidewalk is completely obstructed, and parking enforcement officers will respond.
I think our statistics are probably correct because of the fact that we never see an increase in the amount of money that the Disability Commission has from parking tickets.
That's assuming that there wasn't turnover and someone didn't recognize to put that into the right account. So you're making a big assumption there too.
Right, and so
That
how
could
do
have
we,
happened too. So I can look to follow up with Joe on this and make sure that if there are violations that they're coming into us, I can do that.
Can you also find out how many violations have been posted or taken
I don't
in?
know. Yeah, I'll see what I can do on that. I'm not sure how they manage it. If it's all paper, if it gets electronic, I'm not sure how they do everything. So if they can get me the information, I'll make sure I have it.
I think we've asked to actually have them come and meet with us.
yeah, I think that Dan provided that information. Dan, I don't recall where you got the printout from.
Yeah, it's from the, right across from Steve Mayo's office. They give us a printout and it tells the amount. I think it's, what is it, $125? So all you have to look for is that 125, see how many there are.
Yeah.
It says 250 and others 2. But I think over the last 3 years, there was 1 month there was 2 and 1 month there was 1. And that's about it.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, I'd like to think people don't do that, too often these days. You'd like to think that.
Plus, even if you got ticketed, I think you can appeal that. And if you do have a plaque, they'll reduce the ticket, I think.
Yeah.
Or eliminate it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they can't check if there's like some database that would tell you that, because you have to obviously register the car for it, right? I'm surprised that there's not a database that allows them to know that too, but yeah.
That's a good idea.
Munis, the system.
Not Munis, I mean like a state system, because whoever issues the placards, right? They should have
Yeah.
a database somewhere that that the folks can check. One would think.
But it's not registered to the vehicle, it's registered to the individual. So if somebody was riding with you,
Yeah,
they
Well,
could use it,
right. That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know how you'd resolve that then in that case.
Okay, next item is the Maple Way and JJ Round Playground Pathways. I know, Judy, you are very happy about that.
Oh, so this is great news, and I want to publicly thank Bill Renal and everyone who has been involved with the improvements. they are definitely being utilized because somebody told me about it. And I went over and looked.
Yeah.
And Maple Way, it looks fantastic. And JJ Round, I noticed today they also have the new benches at JJ Round.
Yeah.
Very accessible. So a huge thank you.
Sure.
It's really great. So if anybody has the opportunity to pop
Definitely will go
over
by.
and take a peek at that, it's a really nice improvement. So thank you. That's one of the good
ones.
things.
There you go. Hey, we're happy. We're happy to help. So,
Yeah.
so
Magic
keep in mind, we now have a lot more funding for these types of projects. So, so I received $50,000 in capital funds.
Well, then I'm going to mention one other thing.
I think I
So,
know which one.
You
Is it
go,
is it
girl.
the Gertrude Spalding
I
Park?
haven't
Is it
looked
the one?
at it today, but unfortunately, the accessible picnic table at Maple Way, there's two of them, but one of them that's right next to the accessible parking spot,
Mhm.
it sustained some damage.
Oh, it did. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that needs to, I don't know if it can be repaired.
Was that like a construction thing, you think, or was it like vandalism or something? What do you no idea? All right. Well, we'll fix it.
It needs some attention.
We will give it set attention. You
Thank
said
you.
that was at, which one was that? That was at,
It's Maple Way. Maple Way that when you go in, there's an accessible parking space, and then there's a nice accessible picnic table right near the space.
Oh,
And
the one that's
it
near the tennis, up by the tennis courts?
yeah, it's had a little damage.
All right. Yeah.
Maybe fixable, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask Bill about the magic big question? How about the wheelchair swing at Dolby?
Absolutely.
We're waiting on delivery still, is what I'm being told, Dan. I've asked Joe about it. I ask him probably twice a month. So I'm getting the same story. So, you know, he's thinking now at this point, it'll be summer that it gets installed. Obviously we missed April vacation. So, but they're definitely talking about it and working, you know, it has been ordered. I don't know if they paid. I'm assuming they haven't paid for it because it hasn't been delivered yet. But that's basically what we're just waiting on the whole system.
And it's still
And where-
scheduled for Dolby, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. Sure is.
That's what I was gonna ask.
There you go.
Bill, you mentioned the 50,000. Are there plans for that?
This is the group that's going to decide. So I think, you know, we've done our transition plan document is in the home stretch. So I should be finishing that up hopefully within the month. So maybe in June, I'll be presenting that with kind of the priorities of, you know, I got some stuff on curb ramps. I got some on parking spaces. I have some on the parks and stuff, you know, the playgrounds, all that type of stuff. So we have all the little buckets identified with priorities. So I think maybe I'll give you folks all of that to digest. You tell me which ones you think are most important. Buildings obviously are part of it as well. So we got some low hanging fruit things we could do too, if we think that's a higher priority. So I think it's your guys' discussion on how you want to prioritize it. I'm happy either way just to implement. So let me know where you want to spend the money and we'll make that happen.
So seeing where our next meeting will be the last meeting, that might be a good opportunity for you to present it. And then it would give us time to just, you know, digest it during the recess and then come back in September and really start to have the dialogue amongst us as to, you know, prioritizing things.
Sure. Yeah. I'll let you know later in the month if I can make that happen. I'm waiting on a consultant to give me final deliverable on something. So, you know, I was hoping to get it early this month and that hasn't happened. So if I can make it happen in a couple of weeks, I will definitely do that.
Okay.
Or at least give you an abridged one. I can even do that if need be.
Right, just something that we can,
Yeah.
of the information you currently have, something we can start to look at.
Yeah, so most of it was provided. I think as I've done each of the different kind of groups of areas, they've come here for a small presentation. So I can kind of roll those all up into one, you know, kind of bigger one, and you folks can decide what you think is the highest priority for us. I mean, 50 isn't a ton of money. I still have some transition money transition plan money lying around as well, so that is not allocated just for the plan. That could go to other items as well. So I want to say I might have like 25 or 30 in that account still. So 80 something thousand would be good to get a probably a good size project done, depending on what you
Yeah.
think is the highest priority. I'm also going after a couple of grants. Put an earmark request in for the ACE building. There is an ADA grant for about $1 million that's coming up. That's about the cost of what it would take to put the elevator in, make the accessible entrance in the rear that we've talked about before, I believe. And yeah, so, and then make some improvements to the second floor as well and make that fully accessible as well. So that is a plan that's in the, I wouldn't say in the back burner, but it's in kind of our planning mode right now and trying to get some funding for it. So fingers crossed on that. Maria, I'll probably be asking for some letters of support, obviously, to include with my grant applications, but
Yep,
I'll
okay.
shoot up on those.
Who's
Then
that to, Bill? Who is the grant to, grant at?
So one's the Mass Office of Disability, that they have one grant program. There's another one that's through the what they call the One Stop. So it's like one big umbrella that handles all the state grants. So you apply there. Distressed properties is one of them. So we're looking at that as one of them as well. And then, like I said, I had the earmark request that went in for one of the programs for community buildings. There's one, as long as it's not used for actual government purposes, like, my office, for example, something like a cultural building is right up that alley. So I haven't heard back on that from our delegation yet, but I think other folks have started to hear, so I don't know if I'm successful on that one.
Bill, I wanted to also mention, at one of the other meetings, we had discussed a possible accessible picnic table for the head of the lake where that smaller
Yeah.
playground is. Yeah, because there's
Yeah,
already 2 accessible parking spots, so that would be a perfect location.
Yeah, no, it's a good suggestion. Yeah, you mentioned that before, definitely on my radar, so.
Bill, I have a question to ask you. This is kind of off from the some of the accessible stuff, but
Yeah, yeah.
when the new high school is being built,
Yeah.
do they put fire, the fire alarm boxes? Do they put them in the bathrooms?
Fire alarm boxes in the bathrooms. I would have to check. To be honest with you, I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm sort of ancillarily involved in that. So my role is really the outside utilities, the parking, and the kind of the exterior stuff. That's my role. So I can definitely ask the architects though on that.
Yeah, because I just from my own past experiences of having students stuck in the bathroom when fire alarms go off and they had no visual cue that
Mhm.
the fire alarm was going on, and then it was just like,
Oh,
can't
you're talking
send
about like
another
the
student
flashing light.
in.
You mean like the flashing light thing? Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about? Not the actual, like a pull box. You're talking about.
No,
like-
not the, no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
can take a
actual,
look into the code. Yeah, that's a code thing. I'm almost positive you have to be honest with you. So I'll check on that.
because I know that, well, and I've been out of the school system for 10 years. I know that some of the buildings that I was in up in Lawrence that were relatively new, they weren't brand new, but they were relatively new, didn't have them. And it was, kind of unnerving when a fire
Yeah.
alarm's going off. It's just like, okay, who's in the bathroom? Which bathroom? Who do
Yeah,
we have that can go into both bathrooms?
right. That makes sense though. Yeah, let
Yeah.
me take a look through on that one.
Pretty
course,
sure it is.
Yeah,
Of firemen too, that would have to go and search the building, make sure there's nobody in these restrooms.
Oh yeah, of course. Yep.
Okay, the next item, Judy had brought this up, the blue envelope project. Judy, I don't know if you have any details on it. I had cut something out of the item.
So I did look at a little bit more about it. So right now it looks like it's being implemented by the Massachusetts State Police. And then it would be sounds like a literal blue envelope. And with the instructions to include in that a driver's license, a registration, and the insurance. And the goal of this is to improve interactions between drivers with autism and officers.
That's cool.
Specifically with a goal to avoid any misunderstandings during a traffic stop.
Mhm.
And then from what I've been reading, if a person wanted to obtain one of these, they could go to a state police facility. I guess it's called a barracks. Or there is a spot on mass.gov if they just did a search for the blue envelope, and there's a form that they can fill out
Mhm.
to obtain that.
That might be a good thing to add to our website, right? Maybe as a link.
Yeah, so I can send the link that I saw to you, Janice, if you'd like, and you can take a peek at it. There's also there's an email address as well for anybody who's looking for further information. And
That
then
would be great.
there's another link that takes them to the state police website, which would have a phone number if they wanted to ask for any information. And I did a search online about this because I was interested in it, and it does look like other states are also starting to implement this. That is completely voluntary on the part of a driver who would like to partake in that information.
That makes sense. It's a good program idea for sure.
Right, so for an individual who's on the spectrum who might get nervous or can't communicate, he or she would just hand his blue envelope over. All the documentation would be there. It also says on the outside of each envelope contains tips and instructions that will guide law enforcement members who encounter someone on the autism spectrum.
I was recently at a conference and there was 2 state troopers giving out the blue envelopes. And like you said, it is a literal blue envelope with the helpful hints on the outside, which I thought that if somebody with autism got pulled over, might be helpful for them to read through as the police officer is walking, forward. And, just like all the details you've already given, seemed like a great program.
So we don't think that Wakefield wouldn't be handing these out. I'm sure that
It sounds
police-
like right now it's strictly Massachusetts State Police, although it may it may become more widespread.
I think that it seemed to me that the state police were giving them out, but you could use them if you were pulled over, no matter where you were
or
pulled over.
anything, right?
Right, exactly. Yes, with any officer, correct.
You know what, I'll reach out to Chief Scory and I'm sure he's aware of it, but just inquire as to whether he has envelopes or, there. But I think that is a good idea to put the link on our website.
And Paula, it's nice to know that the information is getting out there to the public. That's great. I think it's a fairly new program.
Yeah, it was great to see them. There was 2 state troopers. It was a transition conference for about 300 people. So it was nice that they were there. I'm taking the time to explain it to people.
Really good idea.
I would think that they'd put something like a decal or something on your window or something where a state trooper came up to you, they'd know right away, rather
Right, to
than
be looking for it. That's a good idea too.
I know that at one time they had talked about doing something like that, putting some kind of decal on people who are deaf that drive. And the deaf community didn't want it because
Right.
it kind of like
targeted.
flagged them as
Targeted,
being,
yeah.
easy targets.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah, that's a good
I'm
point
not
too.
sure if that, I can't remember if the deaf community, I don't think the deaf community has anything like a blue envelope that they could whip out of their glove compartment.
but a good idea and something that other organizations might think to replicate.
Just like years ago, the fire department used to have that police helmet on a window if you had children in a certain part of the house.
Oh,
they-
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah,
they
yeah.
would know they were in
I
that
had one of those
bedroom.
on my window back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a different world.
And Judy, you also had attended the Disability Connection in April?
Yes, Janice, I can email this to you if it's helpful. I wrote it up for myself. So this is an overview of a meeting that I attended April 10th. So it's with the Massachusetts Office on Disability, and the meeting was entitled Disability Connections. And this was very specifically a networking event for the Massachusetts disability community. So just as an overview to anybody who may watch this, the Massachusetts Office on Disability provides information, guidance, and training on disability-related civil rights and architectural access for people with disabilities, housing providers, employers, and businesses that serve the public. So here are the details from the meeting. A variety of advocates spoke regarding local level improvements, and some of these included things that we've been discussing here, parks, playgrounds, and specifically accessibility to existing historical buildings. And then I think that we do a great job with this portion. The speakers advise groups to document any issues experienced, to organize, and to advocate, which obviously is what we're doing here. And then discussion took place regarding the history of accessibility of the MBTA and the impact of a group of 11 riders, along with the Boston Center for Independent Living, and they were represented by Greater Boston Legal Services, and this dated all the way back to 2002. And their advocacy and this action resulted in greater accessibility for future riders. And a portion of the meeting also included, and this is in quotes, the Thomas P. Hopkins Disability Access Award. And this was recognizing these advocates for accessibility, specifically improvements to the MBTA system. And these individuals continue to remain dedicated to helping others with improved access. And then the meeting continued with a focus titled Transportation Access Then and Now. And it was moderated by Bill Henning, the executive director of the Boston Center for Independent Living. And the MBTA improvements since 2002 and prior were detailed, and these include improvements such as new and more reliable elevators, signage and visual displays, accessible buses, audible announcements, and also feedback sessions for MBTA riders, which I have also attended those, and they're very helpful. And then again, just for anybody who might watch this recording that Marie is posting and the town is posting, anybody can reach out to the Massachusetts Office on Disability, and I'll just mention their phone number, which is 617-727-7440. So that's 617-727-7440. Thanks.
Just about the MBTA, I had heard that they have no further plans for the North Ave station as far as platforms or anything, for at least the coming years.
Yeah, Steve and I actually were just talking about this last week. He's advocating for it, and the town council is going to be sending a letter. Maybe we co-sign with you folks. That's how I left it with him last week. So expect something to hear later this month on that.
Yeah, that would be excellent. And
Yeah.
maybe Senator Lewis or two reps also.
That's what he's thinking too, just to try to
We
get
had
some.
done that a year or two ago, right, already, when they
Yep.
were doing their capital planning budget.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah,
It might help if it comes from the council and get the senators involved too. That usually helps.
The squeaky wheel gets the
The grease. That's what I've always been
Yes.
told.
Right.
Well,
That's what
the
I
thing
find
is-
in my day to day.
I went to,
exactly.
I
The thing
recently
is
went,
that the state wants to, have more housing added around the commuter rail.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not going to be accessible to anybody it's almost like, so, well, somebody who, has a mobility problem, don't bother moving here because the fact that there's no way of you getting on the train.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So I would think that, Governor Healy ought to be pushing the MBTA to think about how they're going to do this.
So they have a plan because they had that lawsuit that happened, 10, 15 years ago. So they've been picking it off. It's just how they prioritize. And I would assume it's ridership. I mean, I don't know how they do it, how they prioritize it. But I know that when I've talked to them before about it, and this would have been 4 years ago or so, they were basically telling us that, we're picking through them and it'll get done eventually. So, but
Will,
I mean, anything can move up in a priority list. So.
I recently went in through Oak Grove. I usually used to commute through Wellington because Oak Grove never had parking spaces available. And I was so excited that there are 2 brand new elevators there. There's an elevator on the Washington Street side for the first time ever.
Yep.
And I like to think that that station was just built.
I don't know about that.
Built
But
50 years ago.
yeah, right.
Opened in 1975.
Right.
And there's a beautiful new elevator on the Washington Street side and a brand new elevator. So there are 3 elevators, and it is it's great. It was really great to see that.
Yeah,
And
they're doing a bunch of projects, Janet. It's all over. I mean,
They are.
I don't know if you folks know, but my wife actually works for the T, so she's in capital delivery, as it turns out. But she's on the finance side, so she has no pull, unfortunately. But she's telling me all the time about it that they're improving, accessibility on all these locations. So
they are. I was also at the Disability Connection conference, and actually I won the door prize. I was very excited.
Congrats!
I never won anything. So they talked about the group of everybody who is still living, of the original 11 people that filed the lawsuit. They are still meeting together.
Oh, wow.
22 years later, I think.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And they talked about, I think that they said that when they started, there were like 12 or 16 accessible green line stops, and I think they said there are now 40.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, my wife used to be on the Green Line transformation team, so yeah, they have done over a ton of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and if you have mobility issues, and even as somebody who's not particularly tall, getting onto a train that does not have access, especially the commuter rail, it's almost impossible.
Oh,
it's
no doubt.
very, very difficult to get up on the train. So it's
yeah,
I'd go to the Highlands, go to Melrose Highlands and get on from there. It just
see, I think a lot of the problem for us is that, even if we were to try to do like a mini high platform, it would have to probably span across Albion Street, or they'd have to extend the extend the station further down and cross Chestnut. So that's kind of one of the things that they run into. Just knowing, when I was in Concord, they had 2 mini high platforms, so they had the room to be able to do them. That was the key. So I'm sure that's probably what's causing a lot of this. But ultimately, they got to do it at some point. So let's get it up in the queue.
I don't think Melrose Highlands stop is much bigger than North Ave. And
Mhm.
I actually think when I visually think about it, having grown up in Melrose Islands, I think that I think it's shorter. I
Really?
think that I think there is less because we go, from Albion Street all the way back to Chestnut. So
Mhm.
that entire span,
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong, but I don't think that the Highlands has as much space as we have. Could be wrong.
Divided too, I believe.
Say it
One
again.
on it's northbound and southbound,
Yep. Well, that's usually how they do
where
it.
Red has just one, and it's all wood. The
Right.
Highland concrete.
Just one further thing on accessibility, I wonder about adding, bus service or returning bus service to the rest of Wakefield. I know that that could be another way to make things a little bit more accessible to people, as well as bring people in for potential jobs and things like that.
Yeah, they've kind of reduced that down. I mean, I don't think they had the ridership coming out of Wakefield, unfortunately. Because
Gotcha.
that's why they ended up kind of, they kind of shrunk their service down for the town. And that was done what, a couple 3 years ago now at this point.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
with the coming up at the head of the lake there with what, 415 units. I
It's a
know
few.
years ago they used to have a bus that went into American Mutual to
Yep.
drop people. So
Right.
swing it over towards the head of the lake.
Right.
The MBTA.
So there is going to be a shuttle. So they're required by our decision to actually provide a local shuttle that'll go, between here and then Erin Kokinda, our economic and development coordinator, is looking to actually include it all the way to Edgewater as well, so folks can kind of have a little, maybe like 2 or 3 stops along a route that folks can get to and get back and forth to downtown. So that's something that's coming down the pipeline too.
Yeah, that will definitely be useful.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Okay, and then the last item on the agenda is Paula, you attended the first meeting of the Wakefield Housing Trust.
Yes, actually, we've had 2 meetings now.
That's awesome.
So we first met on April 16th. And just like a little bit of history on the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's part of the state law. It was voted in by town meeting in May of 2023. In August of 2023, the town council approved the trust document. And then everybody was appointed by the end of October. And so we've started to meet. So, like one of the big takeaways that I got, that I'm interested in people's feedback on tonight is kind of what we want housing to be in Wakefield and, kind of like where we want to go. So this group of trustees, there's 7 of us, will manage the trust, be the permanent committee for overseeing housing issues, work towards the creation and preservation of affordable housing in Wakefield for the benefit of low, moderate income households. And so really kind of what we've been focusing on is what does that look like and how would we like to move forward? And so it's really just been kind of some ideas, some strategies have been presented, um, with like rental assistance or health and safety repairs for low moderate income households, long-term affordability, the creation of new models and accessible housing units to help address the needs of people with disabilities and senior citizens. We know that Wakefield is pretty unaffordable for low and moderate income people currently. And so how do we keep people who are already here, as well as attract other folks? And there is some money, some funding that is available. It's close to $1 million, right under $1 million. Some of that is ARPA funds, and so that has to be kind of decided on, and Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, by like December, for a plan to use by 2026.
Yes. Yep. So I believe you have to have a contract signed before the end of the year on whatever you're trying to use it for, if memory serves.
Right, exactly. And
Yep.
so it's what do we want to use it for? I mean, it is a lot of money and it isn't a lot of money, So for our second meeting, we actually went to the Herd School to take a look at that. Is that a place that we would like to, have turned into low, moderate income? Is it enough space? Would we keep the original footprint? I guess this has been discussed for quite some time in the town, and there were some community meetings in 2016 just about what people wanted. And kind of nothing was decided, in part because the public safety building used it when they were being reconstructed. I guess parts of Galvin used it when they were being reconstructed, but it doesn't look like it's needed for the high school. So we just went over there to kind of like see what the potential was. Of the 7 people on the board, 2 people are developers. And so they were just kind of looking at the, what would make sense and what would work. And so I plan to do a little bit of a snippet on, our hopes for people with disabilities in Wakefield for the next meeting. And I, really welcome any of your feedback either this evening, or if you need some time to think about it, feel free to reach out. I know we've, as a commission, have talked about housing as a priority and as a need, and some creative options. So I definitely plan to hit on those points. We meet again on the 23rd of May, so next week, I believe. Any questions, feedback?
Well,
Paula, is there anybody else on out of the 7 folks that has any knowledge of disability issues?
There is, there's somebody from the housing authority who's a nurse practitioner. And she seems to have some ideas. And then Mike McLean is also on the town councilor, who's come to a couple of our meetings as well. But I would say that would be the extent.
well, from my personal perspective, we definitely need to be looking at different models, supportive housing in particular. I went and met with the housing authority, and we went over to the Lincoln School, and Dan and Lois were there as well. And they have, I think it's on their first floor, they have 6, was it 6 or 3 units that are congregate? Might have been, they were huge. I mean, we would never be able to build any, I don't know what the square footage were, but there were 5 bedrooms.
Wow.
A living room, dining room, a separate kitchen, eat-in kitchen, 2.5 full bathrooms. A lot of wasted space, though. I felt like, there was a lot of hallway going around there. And I think if you were doing it today, you would probably reconfigure it a little differently. But the unit itself was really big. And I think what they said is there are not a lot of those across the state of Massachusetts. There are others, but not a lot.
Marie, who is living there? How does a person get access to that?
So you have to meet the eligibility criteria, which I think is on the Wakefield Housing Authority's website. So it's income based. And then you're interviewed you're interviewed, and the residents that are, the 5 residents in each of these units, most of the units are co-ed. And it's at the end of the day, once you check off all the boxes, the housing authority makes the final selection based on their knowledge of the other individuals living in the units. So if a room becomes available in one of these units, it's really an interview process to see whether you will fit in with the other residents that live there. And I think there's a very extensive questionnaire that you fill out. But I definitely think that more units like that need to be built. There's no assistance for these individuals. I mean, they're in a building with other individuals living there. I believe mainly senior citizens. I think most of the other units are 1-bedroom units. So it's not like these individuals would be living alone, but there's no supports, so to speak, that the town is providing. Now, if you qualified for some things like, I don't know, Meals on Wheels or something like that, right, whatever you qualify for, other services, if you check those box off. I'm thinking about, more like individuals like my son who come with DDS supported services. So those services could be coming into these units to support each of these individuals. But I'm
So we
sure
would
that
be looking for, as a creative housing solution. I'm not thinking that your son is likely going to want to be living with elders. So
not in the unit, but I mean, having other units, having a mixed community, I
mhm.
think it, would be a good idea. And one of the reasons I've stated, and Paula, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with individuals like my son, they come with services. Potentially, if they're living in a building with seniors, these seniors could be employed to support these folks, right? And, so we need someone that gets them up in the morning and gets them on the bus, or helps them prepare a meal, or I don't know, right? You don't know what what the skills of some of the seniors are or what their interest is, but to be able to make some money and not have to step foot out your door might be attractive to some.
That's a cool idea.
And also, I think it really helps kind of with the federal regulations about how many people with disabilities can live together. Like that was said in the 80s when at least Massachusetts was deinstitutionalized. There's lots of kind of different laws. And so by having people with disabilities, some elders, maybe some um, you know retail value units, there's many different things, and it really is kind of that community piece where it takes a village, and everybody is
Right.
kind of helping each other, because also maybe the older person could be lonely, and the person with a disability is happy to talk to them every day and make them smile. And so there's a lot that everybody has to offer. And so that has been part of the discussion. Um, no decisions have been made or even kind of proposals put out. But that's what we're going to start moving towards. And, maybe meeting once or twice a month, just as we approach this ARPA deadline. So we definitely want to make good use of those funds.
And there are models. Paula and I have been meeting with some other parents locally, and as we've done our due diligence, we're meeting parents in other parts of the state who are becoming creative in creating housing for their individuals, either with autism or some other type of developmental disability. There's actually a group in Situate. They're building a residence, and just amazing what they've done. But they've acquired funding. They've got a developer. They've purchased. I think it's a building that they're going to be renovating. So where there's a will, there's a way. And and why reinvent the wheel, right? Let's see what some of these other folks are doing and try to hop onto their bandwagon, whether it's working with a developer that they already have. I'd be curious, Paula, of the two developers that are on the board, do they have any experience in this?
They do. They have a lot of experience with the affordable housing, and kind of how to make it all work. I must say that piece is not my area of expertise, but you need to have at least 15 units and have 4 of them to make
Right.
it
Make the
make up
numbers
for the
work.
cost of the building. But I think that's what we're also looking to do with this aid is, potentially use some of this to kind of offset the cost of building for the low to moderate income
Right.
units. If
I know
it's
almost nothing about building, but it just is common sense that if you have 5 rooms sharing one kitchen, it has to be less expensive to build that, no?
Yeah, for sure. Of course it is.
I'm hoping they can do something with it, but I look at the Hurd School and I see a building that's 125 years old. That's, I think, the life of a slate roof, which is, a long time. And it's going to need air conditioning, a lot of renovation, a lot of money.
Yeah, so typically what ends up happening, the town sells those off, and essentially it ends up going to a developer, and the town decides what they want built there and bids it that way, essentially. If you want to think of it like a bid coming in to build whatever the town chooses it to be. That's typically how it's done.
there's some nice architectural features and woodwork within there as well. But I could definitely see what you mean about, yeah, it's going to be expensive, but like Bill said, the town wouldn't absorb that.
But a Lincoln School was a beautiful building too, but I think they took that over when it was still a building that was owned by the town and being run. And it was a building that was up to date. I mean, with
Gotcha.
what but the Hurd School has been sitting there for, God, I don't know how long, 20 years, 25.
I think that, well, the town's still been putting money into it though, to repair stuff. So it's not like it just has been just sitting there, So, I mean, the PD was in there for a little bit, we use it obviously during COVID for, the clinics and different things there too. So definitely have it hasn't just sat vacant.
Right, and wasn't Nazareth, has it been 20 years since Nazareth was in there?
No, Nazareth hasn't been out of there that long. I think Seam Collaborative was in there for a while too, or
Yep.
another,
Yep, they were.
yeah. And that was before Nazareth though.
Right.
But I think the library was storing their books. I had the book sale there for a while.
Oh, yeah, that's still going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this week.
Get the plug in.
Yeah, it's definitely going to need some work, but so
And
Bill, what you're saying is if the town were to sell it to a developer, the town would direct the use of the building?
It's typically how it's done. It depends. There's multiple ways to do it. You can also just sell the land off itself and let them figure out what they want to do. It all depends on how it's done. But I think what I've been hearing from Steve is that we would kind of dictate what we want to be there.
So the town basically kind of dictated as to the development of turning the Franklin School into condominiums then, huh?
Yeah,
I mean,
same
because it's
idea.
really nice that they kept the architect of
Mhm.
the Franklin School.
Right. Yep. So kind of same idea, and we can dictate all of that stuff if we choose to on how we dispose of it. So yeah, I think there's also going to be, it's not just the Hurd School, because Butler Ave, where the old high school, the Burn High School was kind of uh I would say transported to. So we're in the process of capping all of that, and the old house on the top will be gone, but there's opportunities there for something similar. So I've already been talking to Steve about maybe having one of the units set aside for for
Could you
the
explain
same
to me
type
what
of.
you're talking about, Butler Ave?
So Butler Ave, there's like an open area. If you're driving on Butler Ave, it'll be on the right hand side before you get to the first cross street. And there's a small little craftsman style white house that's there, and then there's a lower section kind of by some wetlands, and there was a kind of like a fill of old debris and building debris there. So
Which end of Butler Ave are you coming in on? That would be
coming
on
on
the right
Water Street end.
on the street.
Yep, you go up the street, and there's a little small bridge culvert thing that's there. You see a railing. That's the lot right there. So yeah, so we
The road.
purchased that 97. I think it's 97 Butler, if memory serves. But that was the town purchased that while I've been here. So I want to say maybe 3 years ago. So I've been working with the DEP and some consultants to cap the fill section, and then what we'd be doing is looking at the top section for housing, potentially on top of the cap, depending on how that works. But I don't know if DEP is really on board with that. But that's another option for us too for this type of stuff. And I've talked to Steve a little bit about it. I think the idea was maybe like a series of small duplexes would be done. So we could look at having one of those as a as a specialized housing type thing.
And if we could find even find a developer who's done this before that can provide guidance.
There are some. Yeah, there
right?
definitely are some out
So-
there. Yeah. I don't know if Paul, if you guys are going to have in some of the, some developers and different to get ideas of different projects. I'm on an affordable housing trust up here, so in Middleton. So that's one of the things that we were doing. Also brought in Habitat for Humanity. They do a good job with it too. So they have kind of housing renovation stuff that's pretty cool. And we're also looking at a small program for like a loan program for folks, no interest loans for folks that need to, add ramps and things to their homes. I know there's a couple of state programs too, but something at the local level.
Yeah, I think that was definitely brought up as well.
Yeah.
So, another use for the ARPA funds is to offer it out like that.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly without looking into the details of what has to happen with the money by the end of the year. If it's committed to an account that you're spending out of, I'm not sure if that necessarily counts.
Right.
It all depends. Yeah, it all depends on how the language was written.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about RFRs, and if people needed certain, like you're saying, ramps or changes to their homes, and they were low or moderate income.
Yep.
Or like rent subsidiaries, or mortgage issues. So I believe we're going to explore all those on the 23rd.
Cool. Sounds like you guys are moving along a lot faster than me. I've been in this thing for 6 to 8 months. Yes, you guys sound like you have a game plan. I feel like we're kind of puttering along on up here. So
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's going to be fast and furious at the beginning, and then slow
Good.
down.
Good.
That's the plan.
There you go.
Yeah, well, exciting. Hopefully we can direct some of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any other items that they would like to discuss that we didn't discuss tonight?
Some info on the Inspire Cafe.
So the lease was signed on May 1st.
Congrats.
And we're working towards the whatever it is plans that have to go to the town to get the permitting. So, yeah, I have an update
Construction plans?
tomorrow. I'm sorry?
Construction plans?
I
Is that
guess
what it's called?
it's construction plans. Yeah, it's just, there's just so many details. You have to have a triple sink, the size of the triple sink. I guess there's some kind of a grease drain and,
Yep.
what all has to tie into that, and so it's trying to figure out all of that and, what equipment is going to be needed, and just trying to get some basic plans to make sure that everything fits. So, we'll be going out looking for a lot of in-kind donations. I think will probably be the next step. Our architect she's very well connected, and she is doing all of this pro bono, and she's pulled in her engineering staff and all to do it pro bono.
Awesome.
And so she'll be going out to her connections, looking for flooring, lighting. So if you know of anybody that provides anything like that, yeah, we're going to try to stretch those dollars the best that we can.
Yeah, makes
We
sense.
can, because the costs are staggering.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's just nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait until you start hiring people to build it. That's when the costs are you go stick a shock when that happens too.
I'm
they've
trying to
really,
do a kitchen in my house, and I'm pulling
Mhm.
myself off the floor
Yeah.
listening to some of these numbers.
Yep.
It's
Oh, yeah.
like, yeah,
Who's
yikes.
the sponsoring group? Is this being run through the Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, this
Do they have,
is,
do they have a working group with them right now?
what do you mean, do they have a working group?
Yeah, it's gonna decide what's going in, how they want to build it.
So there is the Friends of Inspire Cafe, which we have become a nonprofit. And we are an advisory group to the Boys and Girls Club. So they have their own, I think Boys and Girls Club of North America has a group of suppliers, like a supply chain network that the Boys and Girls Club of Stoneham and Wakefield tap into. And so I think the contractor and all of that is coming from that network.
Good, good, good. Because both Lois and I would love to get involved in that working group or Friends of.
Yeah, I will,
And I know I know with the Biddy and Bose was kind of a franchise and you had to buy everything off of them. And
yeah,
now you
there,
your own
the-
stuff and a lot of money as far as, supplies.
right. Biddy and Bose dictated the lighting, the paints, everything. You had to go by the book. We have a lot more leeway here, thankfully. We've kind of written a rule book, if you will, of the mission, right? Is obviously everybody knows the mission, but just the fact that it presents professionally, it's run similar to a business, but at the end of the day, it does come under the umbrella of the Boys and Girls Club, and we've got a very nice collaborative relationship with them. Just presenting our wishes as to what our vision is, basically. And they've been very cooperative. So
And
whatever
the
we,
big dip, I'm sorry,
ahead,
the big
Lorna.
difference between Biddy and Bose and Inspire Cafe is Biddy and Bose was a for-profit.
Mm.
And Inspire Cafe is a nonprofit. So we don't have to go by a franchise that the poor people have to pay tons of money, and then they have to buy specific things for from lighting to paint to
Right.
the
And
size
we'll
of the
be
tables.
very mission driven, right?
Right.
The suppliers that we choose will be, suppliers that support our mission. of community, and, the hope will be to use folks that are local to provide, everything that we serve. We have a cafe manager, someone that we're consulting with that we hope is going to be able to come on full time, but to just provide guidance as to menu ideas, equipment that will be needed for those. And yeah, so there'll be a lot more to come, but right now it's just getting the space up and running.
Would you need some town services? What I'm saying is that I know that's a tight area there right on the corner. I know there's a 15-minute parking space right out in front, a handicap spot on the corner. And maybe could we possibly get a second 15 minutes? So people running in, grabbing a cup of coffee, coming out and gone. But maybe on some of the other committees that I'm on, Lois is on, we could bring that subject up to them and get maybe 2 15-minute parking spaces.
I think if that's a really good idea, but it'd be nice if those 15-minute parking spaces were like within the times that
Time frames. Yep.
that it's open, because then those 2 parking places could be used afterwards for some of the restaurants or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's what we would do at the traffic advisory committee. Yeah, we definitely time them.
So what do you think, Bill? That'd be a good subject to bring up?
Definitely, no doubt. No doubt.
It'll be brought up then.
All
Yeah.
right, I like it. Give Anderson a heads up a little bit beforehand. He'll add it as an agenda item.
Giving Inspire Cafe a chance, and it's something, a little gift by the town to the Inspire Cafe to give them some success.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, the town has been pretty good so far in
Yeah,
giving us
yeah.
gifts, so we can't complain.
Right.
But yeah, thank you, Dan. That would be very nice. And as we, go along here, as I learn of things, I'll communicate more. We don't know what we don't know. Our architect and contractors are kind of running the show now in the town. Hopefully, hopefully there are no surprises, right, when we get the permit. So far, the space is gutted and everything. I don't think we've run into any issues. So it will just be putting it back together.
Painting all the handicap spots, the blue paint on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just did that. Yeah, the hand stenciling.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I will.
That was Lois. Thank you, Lois. And just before we adjourn, our next meeting will be Monday, June 3rd. So that will be our last meeting before we recess for the summer. So
Okay.
hopefully,
And that's only what, in 3 weeks?
Less, right? 2.
Yeah.
oh
Is that
geez,
2? Is
yeah.
that 2? That's only 2 weeks, right?
1, 2, 3, exactly
3.
3
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
Through-
So
Second,
keep your thinking apps on for any agenda items you want to have brought up.
right. Well, maybe Bill will have, he can at least toss us over what we've already, what we've already got on that list, and we can, start to chat about that if there's nothing else. But you just never know what may come up between now and
That's
then.
right.
I'll keep checking the
That's right.
email.
There you go.
Would somebody please second the motion to adjourn?
I will.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, well, you all have a good 3 weeks, and we'll see you soon.